Welcome back to the Game Gallery. Today is early October 2024, and we're going to go over Q3 2024. So that would be July, August, September, basically the summer of the pedigree wars and the Fed pivoting to an easing cycle. So for the first part of the podcast, going to talk a little bit of economics, just for, historical purposes, give a background into the situation of this summer because the Federal Reserve dropped rates. And then in the second part of the podcast, we will go over the major players that deal in the graded games industry market and then drill down onto any significant news, happenings, updates that we need to talk about. So the big news for Q3 2024 is that the Federal Reserve Bank that's in the United States, most of this is going to be about the United States economy and industry, lowered rates 0.5%, which is also known as 50 basis points in banking language. That is a significant move in banking. In fact, the last two times the Federal Reserve dropped rates by 50 basis points, a severe and moderate recession followed. That's not the reason for the recessions. It just seems to be a pattern that has held up, let's say, over the last 2 decades. I think in 2001, they did a 0.5 cut. And then in 2007, maybe, they did a 0.5 cut. And of course, we had the Great Recession, the Great Financial Crisis. If you remember that one, that's the really last painful global recession that I remember. Of course, there was the COVID pandemic issue, depending on what type of business you ran. If you ran a restaurant, you were in trouble. If you were online, you got lucky. All of us got lucky probably because we were able to buy and sell and trade online during that time. But if you look at the bond rates and you look at the Federal Reserve, they seem to follow each other. And the suggestion is that this rate easing cycle might end around 3.5%. So we were up at 5.25. So maybe we're going to see stuff like credit cards, auto loans, mortgages drop by maybe 2%, I'm hoping. Maybe we will see 3.99. We should be able to see 4.99. And I'm going to go over some of the effects that you can use in your own, personal home budget to help you keep an eye out on rates in the future, because you might want to not jump immediately because the Federal Reserve is probably going to keep easing for quite a few meetings. I think the next meeting is late 2024. And I think they're expected to ease all the way through 2025. So I've been chatting a little bit online when people are asking, when is it going to be a seller's market in graded games? And my answer is when the Fed bottoms out. In other words, when they're done easing the interest rate that they charge banks overnight. And when banks have to borrow at a lower rate, banks will let us borrow at a lower rate. So what are some of those lower rates that we had in Q3 2024? Looking back from early October, we saw mortgage rates hit a 2-year low, which is great news for the housing market if you're a buyer. And even if you're a seller looking to move, but you're stuck in a low mortgage rate and don't want to move because you're going to have to go into a higher rate mortgage, you might see relief on the horizon and the ability to maybe move and maybe only pay an extra point. Like, let's say you're locked in at 399. Maybe you can put your home on the market next year, sell it, move, and lock in maybe a 4.99 or hopefully a 4.5. So as far as the lowest rates, I poked around. The lowest rates I found, believe it or not, were for new construction, Lennar. Usually it's based upon your zip code. So we're talking about Las Vegas here, and this is obviously Q3 2024. This is not Q4 or going forward. I found rates all the way down to 1.875% for year one. year 2, 2.875, year 3, 3.875, and then for the balance of the term, 4.875, which is a 4.932 APR. So I'm already seeing mortgages below 5%. That's brand new construction. Could be a condo, townhouse, single family home. Probably not all the units that are for sale, but ones that they want to move. And they send out an email almost every few days where they readjust the rates. Like I just got an email today that says final chance fall home sale. This is Q4 rates, 299, 399 year 2, and then 499 for the balance of the term. So we're really at 499 already. And we were at 699, 2, 3, 4 months ago? I mean, we were at 8% probably half a year ago. I had some mortgages that I was dealing with in the 7 and 8 range, and I thought they were really high at the time. Now looking back today, those were really high compared to the situation we're in now, only after a 0.5 cut at the Fed. There's a guy on YouTube, The Uneducated Economist, and he calls it the power of the Fed is really what they're going to do rather than what they do. The power of what they're going to do and what they project into the future moves the entire global market. It moves all the banking system. So if you're looking for a mortgage, you might wait. You might want to target 4.99, 4.5, or 3.99 on a 15-year, I'm guessing. The shorter the term, the lower the rate. What about auto loans? I poked around on the internet. I found 0.9% at Chevy and Ford, even on some SUVs. Toyota, not so low, but it's a premium product as far as I'm concerned for reliability. And I do believe in September I found 4.99%, which isn't that bad. Going forward, maybe we're going to see 3.99, 2.99 at Toyota, and maybe even 0% at certain car manufacturers. You can check that by just going to Kia, Hyundai, CART, Chevy, Ford, Toyota.com, typing in your zip code, and you can check for financing deals. If you're looking for a new car and you want to lock in a nice low rate. And when I say lock in, what I mean is you're locking in a fixed rate. So normally when we hit the bottom of the cycle is when you want to lock in a fixed rate. But this is one of those times. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a registered tax preparer. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. But in my opinion, this is a time where you could take a chance on an adjustable rate product, adjustable rate mortgage, if you're going to refi at the bottom of the Fed into a fixed price. But right now, if you do adjustable, like we have a high rate savings account that adjusted from like 4.2 to 2.1. It got cut in half automatically suddenly in Q3. So on the flip side, if you get into a lending product, adjustable, it should go down over time into 2025, probably early 2026. So vehicle loans, the bad news about vehicle loans, we might see 0% is the good news. The bad news is that vehicle loans now total over $1.6 trillion in the United States, almost as much as student loans at 1.7. I mean, those two items right there are going to approach $4 trillion. So even though we had high rates in the past, we had a pandemic supply chain crunch, and, you know, everybody was dying to buy cars because they couldn't buy them. And psychologically, when you can't buy something, you want it more. And by the way, that's a sales technique you can use in your own flipping game, in your graded game, buy, sell, trade business. It's called the takeaway. When somebody wants something, you say, well, let me check inventory, not sure if it's available. You can also say, well, there's a couple people that want it. You can also say, well, I'm not really looking to sell it. In other words, you take it away from the buyer after dangling it, and theoretically, the psychology says they're going to want it twice as much. So that takes care of mortgages and auto loans. What about credit card debt? Credit card debt is actually climbing up towards vehicle loans. Like I said, 1.6 trillion, student loans 1.7 trillion. Credit card debt is now up to 1.4 trillion. You add those three together, you're talking $6-7 trillion. This is the one topic that neither candidate, no politician will talk about. The national debt, credit card debt, student loan debt, vehicle loan debt. Nobody is talking about this shitstorm that we're going to have to face someday. So this could be a future recession. Who knows? We don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. In the past, when the Psalm rule was triggered, which recently happened in Q3, that is, unemployment jumped over 0.5% based on the print compared to the prior print. We have another print coming soon in Q4, which I hope to do another update in probably early January on. But the Psalm rule has always basically signaled a recession. So the Psalm rule is saying, that's Dr. Psalm, S-A-H-M. You can just Google the Psalm rule recession. That was triggered in July, which is Q3. And then we also had the rule where the last 0.5 cuts led into a recession, not triggered, but led into a recession. So there's quite a few indicators out there. As far as the yield curve, I don't know. It seems like the consensus isn't very strong on that. But a lot of the economic data says there's a recession coming. I feel like we've been in a recession in small business and manufacturing in the United States for quite a while. So I think it also depends on the industry, the business you're in, service versus goods, manufacturing versus resale. It kind of matters if you have a global customer base as well. So there's a lot of factors, but it seems like certain areas of the economy are in a recession, full-blown recession. The port strike could have triggered one, but it looks like that's resolved already. So we're talking about GDP probably when we're talking about a recession. So 2025 could or could not be a recession. And as far as the graded games go, I asked that question to the community on Facebook because I want to start talking about more economics because they do affect graded games. I think they're important. They affect all collectibles, sports cards, comics, coins, graded games, commodities, whatever it is. Economics affects it all, so I think it's relevant to talk about it. And I posted to the community on Facebook, does it feel like a recession or soft landing to you and or your business? So some people on Facebook are like me, they're resellers, they have small businesses. A lot of people are employed in different industries, so I think this is a good cross-section of the people that collect graded games and their perception on the economy. Eric Johnson says, boom. So I guess that's agree. Scott Glenn says, I don't know, hard to say, my friends. eBay business is doing great. She's been at it full-time for about 8 years. I think she's doing great, so I'm not sure, LOL. So it doesn't sound like he's a business owner, but it sounds like his eBay friend is surviving. Devin Carlson says, those who have money are doing good. I agree. Like the wealthy are doing, the rich are getting richer and the poor are not getting richer is really what's been going on since we've been printing money. Those who never had money still don't have money. Kind of an early bird gets the worm type of situation as far as sealed games, slabs. How's the market right now? John Hopper, he asked me. My prediction is cheaper, inexpensive games will sell. I agree. I'm actually, I just sent in 18 $100 slabs to Wada to get ready for Christmas presents that are on the cheap end. And he said possibly keys. A lot of mid-tier games are underperforming, ? I don't know about the mid-tier. I think we've bounced off the bottom there. Thanks for asking. It seems like the market is bouncing a little higher than the 2023 lows. That's in graded games. But I lost a lot of money last year reselling. I lost a lot of money this year reselling after expenses. Overhead is a killer. It's like 15 to 20 grand a year. So, even if I make 20 grand profit, the profits are very, very low. Most of the inventory that's selling underwater was purchased in 2021, 2022. So once that inventory is gone, I'll probably be in a more profitable situation. Michael Boffat's replied, soft landing. I think people forget how terrible recessions feel. Prices aren't flat in recessions. He's right. If we enter a full-blown recession, everything is going to get soft. Everything, whether it's gold, Bitcoin, stocks, which hit an all-time high in Q3. I think Bitcoin hovered in the $65,000 range. I can't believe the stock market. It's just still going and going and going. Justin Davis replied, not at all. Sales are a bit down, nothing too crazy. Obviously, it will pick up with Q4 coming. Was actually expecting a huge drop with this election, but thank God Trump's kept his mouth shut for most of the time. Being a small business, nothing I hate more than that guy saving no money. It freaks me out. We still have another month to go, but I'm expecting stuff to pick up in November, December. Q4 is kind of a misnomer in my 30 years experience reselling. It's really Black Friday through December. It's like that 1 month where sales go ballistic. October is like the purchasing time, last minute purchasing for resellers. And then, November 1st rolls around, things are getting really good. Once Black Friday hits, it's just no pain, no gain. Excuse me. Chris Moore replied, always seems like a boom in my business. I don't know what business he's in. I should have replied to that and asked him. Alexander Goldstone says, I think the market goes up through summer. It's an election year, which is good for markets. As long as the administration is new and we're on time for a news cycle high, expect rotations out of stock and Bitcoin into collectibles and altcoins as usual. We peak somewhere, then we go down. How low? Depends on if we have a soft landing or recession, but I don't think we will know until summer 2025. I agree. I agree that the official recession is getting pushed out from 2024 to 2025. Jason Lee says, inflation causes games to go up in price. People are making more money. Are you making money reselling games? I have not been able to make any money on 2021 and 2022 buys. 2023 buys were pretty good. 2024 buys were even better. Quest Jelinek has a really long reply. He talks about getting back to zero interest rates, which I don't think is going to happen this time around. I'm thinking 3.5, 3.0, maybe 2.5 at the most. I don't think we're going to go negative or zero like we did in the great printing pandemic. Let's see what he says here. Last couple of cycles, high rates followed by low rates, accompanied by a recession. Yes, basically when the easing starts, it usually turns into a recession. It doesn't trigger it, doesn't cause it. It's just part of the cycle. So besides that, stocks are due for a mean revision. So he's saying everything should come down, but he also says he's a senior level software consultant and it's still golden. So he's doing tremendous in his career, but he says that college grads, it all comes down to the timing and the hiring loop. John Kropp, I do know he has a small business where he designs websites and he probably does, web management. He helps with web hosting, I'm guessing. I think he does everything on Apple Computer. He's based in San Francisco, a very tech-heavy area. John Kropp says, despite inflation, this year has been one of the best for my business in the past 15 years. Yeah, he's been doing business through a couple recessions. I respect him a lot. I went to high school with him and Tim Schafer, who founded Double Fine and was the main dev for Psychonauts at Lucas. So I'm also doing pretty good with my eBay downsizing side hustle. That's cool. I didn't know he did eBay. That's awesome. So yeah, awesome, John. I know you don't listen to the podcast, but thanks for chiming in. Jim Romano, actually kind of yes. So Jim's feeling a recession. I don't know what industry is he in. It looks like he's a geotechnical engineer at ATC Atlas Corporation, Villanova. So I think he's in the United States. Sounds like he's an engineer. Stephen Kaufman, honestly, I think we're in a recession. If you look what the billionaires in the market are doing, they're selling stocks and going to cash. Yeah, Warren Buffett, for the first time in a long time, is like half cash. Most of that cash is in treasuries, but it can be converted to cash if needed, because treasuries are as good as cash. You can borrow against them. He has a ton of cash right now, Warren Buffett. Last time he did that, the next step was the great financial crisis where he bailed out Bank of America. If you did not remember, we were going to lose Bank of America. Warren Buffett came in. He swooped in. He dropped $2, $3, $4 billion. He got preferred stock conversion type of deal. Not only did he get a piece of the company, he also got the option to buy stock in the future, even if it went up. So he made billions off that deal by swooping in when there was blood in the streets. Greg Pabich replies, I think we're splitting kind of into the haves and have-nots, with the nots becoming an ever-growing part of our country. So what he's saying is the nots are in a recession, and they are a bigger part of the population. So there's more people at the bottom, less people at the top. More people are feeling recession, less people at the top are feeling recession. Trevor Goodchild, recession loomed but never actually hit us. Officially, yes. Unofficially, I don't know. Just various economic hurdles and supply chain issues. Do you think mortgage rates will stay low next year? Yes, I do. He's thinking of buying a house. That's great. Trevor, I wish you all the luck. I think I personally would wait until mortgage rates dropped to the bottom in basically after the Fed hikes all the way down, and you won't know if they've bottomed out until they do a non-hike. So you're going to have to wait until we hit bottom and then the next Fed meeting after that and check mortgage rates throughout those months. And when you see 3.99 or something, I think it's time to lock in a fixed rate 30-year, assuming you're not 60, 70 years old like me, when I probably will maybe buy my first home. Who knows? Daniel Shepis, he runs one of the biggest Facebook groups on not graded games, but I would say retro games. I think he recently opened a shop as well. He says, I think the recession talk is nonsense. People are spending at record rates, whether half of the country wants to admit it or not. So that's really interesting because he is in the trenches of selling retro games every single day. He also is the head mod for one of the active groups on Facebook. So no recession on the gaming side of the hobby. Connor McPhee, we are living in a depression. Nobody wants to call it such, though. Wages are vastly under the cost of living, and goods are. That's what the port strike on the East Coast was all about. I believe they wanted 77% salary increases to bring it up to somewhere near the West Coast longshoreman, port worker, wages, to kind of make the East Coast and West Coast about the same. And last I read, breaking news is that the port strike is over and they accepted something like a mid 60% increase. And they also wanted to know that they were not going to lose their job against artificial intelligence. Many businesses only getting by paying minimum wage or taking advantage of foreign workers. I believe that's a true statement, but it's highly political and it's something that's not talked about at all. We talk about unemployment rates all day long. We talk about the Somme rule all day long. We talk about unemployment increases triggering recessions all day long, but we rarely talk about where the unemployment's coming from, who the unemployment is going to, who the employment is going to, because it's a highly politicized topic. And that's probably one of the two topics that I think really need to be tackled is debt and unemployment segmentation based upon is it going to a tax-paying citizen or not? So let's just leave it at that as far as economics goes. Do you feel like we're going to be going into a recession in 2025? Or do you feel like we're heading into a soft landing?